As with phishing emails, you'll find that a phishing site, or a phishing page as it may be, tends to consistently exhibit a number of very clearly identifiable suspicious traits. Let me give you some examples, and I particularly want to focus on how to establish authenticity. Here's the first one. A page like this is requesting quite an excessive amount of information. Now in this case, the phisher is attempting to convince the victim that this is Chase Bank. And in order to verify your identity on Chase Bank, you need to provide all of the information you see here. Now common sense, and this is really the key because not all victims always exhibit a great deal of common sense, but common sense should dictate that if this is legitimately your bank emailing you, they already have this information. They may need some form of identity verification, but it is never this extensive under legitimate conditions. So immediately seeing requests for really extensive personal information should be an absolute red flag. Let's look at another red flag which is evident in this particular phishing site, but even more evident in the next one. Domain names. The legitimate website will almost certainly have a recognizable name. Now there are some exceptions to that which I'm also going to touch on shortly, but in a case like this, this is a PayPal phish, and it's a PayPal phish in German, yet we're seeing a domain name that doesn't look anything like what we would expect from PayPal. Not only that, but this attack, which is mounted in German, is on a French top-level domain. It's on a .fr, and that would be exceptionally unusual. So simply by doing nothing else beyond looking at that domain name, we can get a very, very quick sense that something here is not quite right. Now, irregular domain names are one thing to look out for, but the other one is IP addresses. You see a lot of phishing pages stood up simply on an IP address. A legitimate business will never do that. Certainly they never should do that. If you see it, do not enter any information. There's a very, very high probability of it being malicious. But there's another pattern that we can look for in the domain name as well. Let's go and take a look. Missing HTTPS. Any legitimate website requesting any form of sensitive information, such as an email address and password as you see here, will be served over HTTPS. There will be a padlock. You will be able to click the padlock and inspect the certificate and see that it was issued to the organization that you think you're visiting. It is extremely rare to see any phishing page served over a secure connection because they've got to have a valid certificate. And yes, they could stand up a fake domain and get a valid certificate for that fake domain, but then you should be able to identify that via the fact that the domain is not consistent with what you would expect to see. Plus, of course, if a phishing attack like that does happen, the certificate authority can always revoke the cert. So there's a recourse available there as well. So there are a few indicators that you can fairly easily pick up on phishing pages. But have a look at this one for a moment. Is this a phishing page? The branding looks good. The spelling, the grammar, the casing looks good. It's not requesting excessive information. It looks legitimate. We can have a look at the domain name up there towards the top of the screen, and it appears somewhat legitimate. Apple, iCloud, Mobi for a mobile device. Yet this is a phishing page. Let's look at this next to the legitimate page on which it's based. The only difference whatsoever that we can see here is the domain name. Now the main difference here is that we can see the padlock and Apple Inc. in green. So it's been served over HTTPS and Apple has an EV certificate, an extended validation certificate. So we can have a very high degree of confidence that we are actually looking at one of Apple's pages. But that is a very, very minor difference. This is a hard one to spot. And unless someone specifically knows what to look for, this one could very, very easily fool them. Not only that, but they even have a nice responsive design. Now it's a little easier here to see that there's no padlock and there's no HTTPS. But again, it is a very, very good phishing page. Inevitably, in a case like this, the attacker simply takes Apple's legitimate page, copies it, and puts it on their own site. And then of course siphons up anything that's entered into the input boxes here themselves. So I wanted to finish with this one just to point out how effective well-designed phishing pages can actually be. You can still identify that it is indeed a fish, but it's exceptionally hard if you don't know exactly what to look for. So that's a bunch of cool signs of phishing pages, and of course how to do one well. Let's now move on and take a look at spear phishing.